Right, thank you. We'll move to the first motion of the day, motion A, and call Ruth once more to the lectern.
Ruth French, Aberdeenshire, delegate number 14. Okay. Madam President, fellow delegates, added value units and assignments at Nat 4 and Nat 5. I've not included higher considerations in this motion as there's very little experience as to their impact on pupils and staff so far. Next year maybe will be different. And I'm not talking either about National 5 AVUs that are external exams, as is the case with maths. In maths they're externally sat, externally marked. As I have worked on this motion, I've not found any penetrating light. Indeed, quite the reverse. What I've found is a fog. It is a mess. AVU/assignment requirements are different for everyone. They go from a straightforward, it's an externally executed and externally marked exam, as in maths, to it's a project worked over several months, totally, i.e. 100% marked by the teacher. Some view them as useful, some as a time filler. Establishing the standard and maintaining it across a department, never mind the country, is not easy. Discussion and cross-marking take time. Do you find cross-marking takes nearly 3 times as much as a normal marking, as you desperately make sure that you have interpreted the often poor marking scheme correctly? And time is money, but not for teachers. They are not paid, not even the notional sum previously offered, for all of this hard work. And of course you may then discover that all of your hard work was to no avail, as verification says, no, you got it wrong. Poor marking schemes and exemplars do not help. No wonder some teachers are beginning to say no. In the mixed level classroom, and let's face it, that is most classrooms, the AVUs and assignments for Nat 4 and Nat 5 do not necessarily knit together very well. Again, a workload issue for the teacher. Workload is increased in other ways as well. Many AVUs require research and choice. And these days, the internet awaits the researcher on any possible subject. Managing and subsequently marking these is time-consuming. Parents get sucked in as sons and daughters are overwhelmed. At possibly 60% of the final mark and an open book event, who can blame them? Where are the pupils who live without the internet at home, who don't have parents capable of helping them? This is no level playing field. Many teachers and pupils find the pass-fail of Nat 4 is very demoralising and demotivating. Why try to do your best when it's not acknowledged on your certificate? Pupils are doing these AVUs and assignments often, if not, well, maybe not the assignments, but the AVUs in February and March. Possibly 4 or 5 of them all at once, interspersed with their third units and preparing hopefully for the final exam. The stress is considerable, too much in some cases, as mountains of work need to be done for Friday. Tearful pupils in top sets, 6 A's pupils, are in tears, stressed out. This is new and not healthy. What are we doing to our young people? We must remember formal tests were not part really of the broad general education. In S4, however, they have experienced a positive tsunami of testing. Do you have time to teach in the way that you might wish to? And what do we learn from these AVUs? Do they tell us something we didn't know about the pupil? In my experience, no. I had a Nat 4 class this year. Only one person passed the units first time around, and required a resit for the AVU. These are pointless hoops. We are on our knees trying to fulfil the expectation of SQA as demanded by Education Scotland, and then there is the elephant in the room. Tess, on the 24th of April, lifted the lid on cheating at Nat 4. Are AVU's assignments any different? We are no longer the people who prepare children for their examinations, but seem to have become the people who are there to get them through. Is this really what Scotland wants from its education system? I beg you to support the motion. Thank you.
Barbara's going second.
Barbara Adams, Aberdeenshire, number 13. I don't really know what to add after what Ruth said. So, as you all have your own experience of National 4 and National 5 added value in your own subjects, I'm going to give you a teeny snippet of my National 4 class. They all have different abilities, and the added value unit is chosen by the SQA on fishing in the North Sea. Not their choice. And we've got to have access to computers. All of us trying at exactly the same time as on doing 2 or 3. I gave them time. If they need extra time at home, what benefit and are they getting at home? Not sure. So then the write-up, exam conditions, just your notes, got to make sure they've only got notes, etc. I've still got pupils trying to do their National 4 added value now. I gave them 9 doubles in the end, and while still trying to get Unit 3 finished, and all the resits, I still haven't finished. They've got to be dragged out of study leave, if they will actually come. Some of them don't see it as anything. If I get a National 5 pass in something else, it's going to be more value, and therefore they're not concerned. I get the stress, I've got to get you through this, they just don't want to know. They also see no value in it at all. We're just testing. It's something they've got to get through, and that's how they are feeling about it. I urge you to support this motion.
Any further contributions? Sid?
Afternoon, Congress. Sid Sanderson, delegate number 9. I'd like to move an amendment to Ruth's motion. I support the motion, but I would like to remove the following part of the motion for a reason I'll go into in a moment. So if you get your pens and pencils handy, go to the 3rd line where it begins National 5. I would propose that we remove as these have little educational value to justify the unnecessary stress they place on pupils and their teachers. That whole sentence, so that there's a full stop after National 5, and then the motion continues, these assessments do not measure, etc., etc. Now, the reason why I move for this amendment is that I wouldn't like the motion to fall. I support the motion. I wouldn't like it to fall because some delegates would be uncomfortable with the expression that they have little educational value. There may be a few people who think they've got educational value. I'm not one of them, but there might be some here, and I think that I would love to support the motion, and it might be that people are uncomfortable with a motion in the SSTA saying to the world that there are absolutely no educational value.
Do we have a seconder for the amendment? Not to you.
Anne O'Kane, delegate number 25. I second the proposed amendment made by Sid. As Sid has said, I'm unsure about the statement that added values have little educational value, especially as I understand they're supposed to tie all the units of a course together. Indeed, without this unit, a pupil could not obtain overarching qualification. And I put it to you that perhaps it is the method being used or the lack of leeway which teachers have about which method to apply that is the main problem here. Additionally, the last sentence claims that these assessments measure the support which pupils receive from home. Should these assessments not be carried out at school? Furthermore, and in my experience, in areas of social deprivation, many pupils receive little or no support from home, and Ruth has acknowledged this. So I would suggest that you support Sid's proposed amendment, especially as by taking away the last part of the motion, you don't take away the action which is being requested. Thank you.
Ruth, are you willing to accept the amendment? Congress happy to accept that amendment? Okay, so we'll now debate the substantive motion. Further contributions? Janine?
President and delegates, I find myself in a really odd position here because it would be very rare that I would actually disagree with anything that Ruth says, and there is a lot of what Ruth has said that I absolutely do agree with. But I am actually opposing the motion, not just from my own point of view, but from my district, for a number of reasons. And I'm really grateful to Ruth actually to have opened this up for debate. I agree with the point that teachers are having to jump through countless hoops that seem to be getting progressively smaller and more difficult to jump through. All the problems about marking guidelines, I agree with all of that. And over-assessment does put unnecessary stress on our pupils. However, it's the AVU element of it and the educational value of that I have to question this part of the motion. I think whether you like the AVU or you hate it is determined by your subject. It's very subject specific, and how that they're actually used within your school. I'm a maths teacher, as is Ruth, and I like the AVU because it reassures me at the very end of a course that my pupils haven't instantaneously forgotten what they learned in Unit 1 after they finished Unit 1 and moved on to the next unit. So that, for me as a teacher, that's a reassurance at the end of the year that they have a summative assessment and it's carried out in school because it's administered as a test. In South Lanarkshire, that element of the motion also, we would do almost all, whether it's a portfolio, investigation or assignment, almost all of those would be carried out in school. I know of no instances where that's done at home. There may be background research that's done at home, but the actual assignment is carried out in school. And finally, basically being pressurised by one of the reps, who he gave me a very compelling argument to come up and disagree about the AVU and this motion. Certainly for a National 4, he's a social subjects teacher, he teaches history, and he says it's one of the few places that pupils actually get the freedom to choose and personalise something within their subject, which is already extremely prescriptive. He says the pupils find it extremely stimulating, and he actually uses it as a motivator to keep them going and keep them interested in their subject. So, although I agree with an awful lot of what Ruth has said, I would actually ask you to oppose this motion based on the fact that I do think AVUs have educational value in many subjects.
Monique Treongou, Slovenian delegate number 54. Madam President, delegates, I work in pupil support. I follow and support my pupils around the school, basically. And since the implementation of a new nationals, we're experiencing a new challenge, added value units. In some subjects, they work very well, especially social subjects. However, and I'm talking from the point of view of the pupils here, some of our pupils have to complete more than 6 AVUs by the end of March. This means that each year now, between January and March, every department is chasing up ACE4 pupils to get them to complete their AVUs, expecting pupils to come in at lunch or after school hours. This is added stress for the teachers, and I'm not going to go there because you've explained it very well, Ruth. But this is also added stress for our pupils. It's actually unhealthy for some of the top sets pupils. Some of them on the verge of breaking down, others ducking and diving, because every subject teacher is putting pressure on them at the same time. This has to stop. I think the SQA needs to review the added value units in every subject and the way they are implemented. So I would vote for this motion. I would urge you to vote for it. Thank you.
Christopher Stewart, delegate number 58. I think I've got a lot of common ground with everyone who's been speaking so far, but perhaps my problems with this is it's too broad a motion, and this comes down to what people have been saying, that perhaps the SQA is trying to fit a whole basket of subjects into the same general system when they're assessing it. As a social subjects teacher myself, however, the opinions I've been canvassing, both in my district and my school, have mainly been amongst social subjects teachers, and overwhelmingly they found great value in it. They'd go against the fact that there's no educational value. Even taking the point that Ruth said, that there's nothing to be learned about a student you wouldn't get through the other unit assessments, I would find the opposite to be the case. I've been surprised by students who I thought were perhaps underperforming in class, suddenly taking the opportunities to research, to present in a different way, to maybe speak to me rather than writing, to use a film rather than writing, who have really, really shone for the first time perhaps in 3 or 4 years of education. Similarly, I found very bookish academic students who are stumbling at the need to do something out with their ballpark. And I think it's very, very valuable that we now have a way of looking at a whole range of educational attainment rather than just sitting and writing an assessment. I can see concerns with things being researched at home, or my subject geography, people carrying out field work and perhaps falsifying results, but that's always been the case with any work done outside the classroom. We're very good at using our professional judgment about who's a chancer, whose level of numeracy or literacy has suddenly leapt. And there is opportunity for us to ask students to present in a different way to try and catch that. I just think it's a real shame, and again, like the history teachers mentioned earlier, this chance to go beyond what we've taught in the classroom, to choose what you want to look at, to follow an interest, to work even as a small team researching, lots and lots of opportunities come from it. So, whilst I absolutely agree, much of this has to be looked at again. I don't know the situation in mathematics or in English as well, or any other subject. It's too broad. There's a lot of value. They add a great deal to National 4, National 5 courses, and I think they'll add a great deal to both higher and advanced higher courses as well. So for that reason, I'd have to ask you to vote against this motion.
James Howe, Glasgow, 28. I agree with many of the things that Ruth has said, but there's no alternative proposed here. What's proposed is an exam-only assessment. Many courses outside schools, in colleges and university, have work that's done at home. We're not casting down those. Many pupils do not perform well in exams, and sometimes the AVU gives them a fighting chance of a good pass. The assignment for National 5 is completed in class with a time limit. It's not completely done at home. Grades at National 5 would have a negative impact if it was exam only. Many pupils do not perform well in exams. You could construe the idea of exam-only classes as elitist. It would not have a negative impact on the brightest pupils, but it will have an impact on those who are not so bright and who have a fighting chance of getting a good pass with the AVU. We need to remember that we need different types of assessment for the different needs of our pupils, and we shouldn't forget that. I urge you to oppose the motion.
contributions from the floor?
Gordon West, 15 Aberdeenshire. I'm from the district that proposed this motion, and in hearing the debate, I'm hearing the way it's going. I think there's a danger here. If we vote this down, we give a message at the same time that we think there's nothing wrong. But if we vote for it, I can hear people saying that there's things they don't like. And I would therefore suggest that we need to remit this to the executive for them to work this one through a little bit. It may well be that there's an agreement of minds here that some things in some subjects need to be removed, but others perhaps not. And we have this one-size-fit-all approach, and perhaps that's the bit we should be trying to get. So I would suggest a proposal that we remit this to the executive, rather than take a decision that could be interpreted the wrong way.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that? Okay. Okay. Is Congress prepared to accept that? Ruth?
Yes.
Okay. So we remit that motion to executive. Thank you, Congress.